that. Greg, good evening. Hello? Greg, good evening. Okay. Roy? Hello?
I'm here.
Yes.
Question. Well, let me tell the story first, if you don't mind.
Okay.
That I collect various items. My radios is mainly that I collect, and that explains my reason of listening to the radio, as Mr. Barfield would say, drinking Kool-Aid, because I admire old radios. I got quite a few of them. They're worth quite a bit. And also, in rummaging through looking for radios, I found an antique stove, but it's a little bitty stove that they made for little girls in the wild, in the 18, I'll come up with something, in the somewhere in the 1800s.
Okay.
And this little stove is like the old mothers used to cook on. You can take the tops off, and you actually can build a little fire inside this little stove. They would allow the kids to fry grasshoppers and pull the legs off. Now, my insurance man, he came out to the house there, and I was telling him about it, but he didn't believe me. He had to admit, I didn't believe you. But he came out to the house, and I showed him this little stove. And, man, he was just astonished and couldn't believe that children, once upon a time, used to have access to fire, and it just wasn't a big deal. But now, in this day of time, it is. But my question to you, too, is my house caught on fire, and the roof, in the attic, it was electrical short in the top there. And I thank you people for being on the job like you are, because it was a firefighter second in line who was there to wake me up, because I was sound asleep. But the fire smoke wasn't down, it was up above. Oh. And I wonder, could you explain that, why the fire, my whole roof was burning, but down below there was no smoke?
Well,
could you explain that?
Well, if you had an attic, a fire in the attic, obviously heat moves upward, not downward. Mm-hmm. We've walked into houses and that were supposed to be on fire. We walked in and there was nothing in the entire main level. Yeah. But from the outside, the whole roof was on fire. So eventually it will burn down into where you're living. But that's the reason for it, that heat and smoke move up and out.
Okay, even the fire alarms didn't even go off. Okay.
Yeah, eventually that fire will drop down into the main level. I mean, it's going to, whether you want it to or not.
Mm-hmm. Right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ray. Greg, good evening.
Good evening, guys. Well, I think you know what I'm going to talk about, Doctor.
Are you going to talk about Carl Thomas? Go ahead.
Okay, now,
that's my favorite topic.
Actions of people in Saudi Arabia, in Iraq, Iran, Jordan, Sudan, who think, they call themselves true Islam. How do you explain their actions, the way they treat their own people and the way they treat? Now, how do you explain that?
Okay, I think you are mixing between two things. You are mixing between the action of the governments and the action of the people. Okay, now that's one thing. Let me talk. You asked me a question. Let me talk. Second thing, let me share with you that. Do you know what the bell curve means? The bell curve. The bell curve looks like this: 5% of the people on the right side, 5% of the people on the left side, and then 90% of the people in the middle. Which means that Muslims, Christians, Jews, Baha'i, Buddhists, even atheists. Let me put it that way. Most people are in the center, and you will see biased people, right or lefters on the right or on the left. This is something normal. That's something you see all over the earth. Now, the issue with with Muslims is the media in America, mainly the conservative Republican talk show hosts like Rush Limbaugh and the Savage and all these guys, they magnify evil, and evil is evil. You know, anywhere you go, evil is evil. But they magnify evil to the point where, to you as a regular American who maybe never studied the Arab or the Muslim history and know nothing about Islam, you see that as the stream, or you see that as Islam. But this is not true.
But what if a person can go to the library and check out the Quran or the Hadith and read it themselves? And, that's pretty much, if you was to go back to where you're from, and to being you lived here in America, that you would probably be one of the ones that would, be beheaded on the street because you came here to the great Satan.
Hey, listen, if you need to read the Quran, it has to be read to you, one, because the Quran is in Arabic and the English is the English translation of the meaning of the Quran, which means we have to explain to you the causes and the reason of the revelation for each verse. You cannot just read a line that was revealed 1400 years ago and you read it from today's perspective. You have to read exactly when and why it was revealed. Then we can explain it to you. But you cannot read it about killing or jihad and all that. You think we're talking about you today. This is not the fact. This is not true. You have to read that. They have to take the whole book, because if you go to the Bible, to the Old Testament, the Torah itself is full of words of killing and hatred. But we're talking about certain people, certain revelations, events that occurred 2,700 years ago.
Well, have you heard of a man that teaches at WSU in the Walad Shubat? A doctor, I think he's a doctor too. Walad Shubat.
What does he teach?
He was a former Palestinian, and now he's a Jew. And I went to a deal at WSU that was put on by it wasn't put on, but it was sponsored by the Orthodox Jewish Foundation here in Wichita.
Yeah.
The former Palestine suicide bomber, of course, he's...
I know what you're talking about, okay.
But he told how he was raised in so-called Palestine and everything, and this is coming right from someone who was raised there all her life,
Right.
So I don't think that, you go on this, deal against conservatives, so to speak, like Rush Limbaugh. I don't listen to any of them. Now, Cal Thomas, I think most of what he says is true.
You scare me when you say that, because there's a lot of Americans think the same way like you, and you guys scare us. Because
there's a lot of Americans with common.
No, because you're
right here in the Bible Belt, and you're trying to tell people in the Bible Belt that Islam is just okay when it may be okay with Muslims over here because they're not practicing true Islam. But when you go over to the other countries and see how they treat their own people, every one of them, they kill their own people just because they're a different sect of Islam. Like they're doing over on Iraq right now. They kill each other like they're doing, everywhere a Muslim country is, they're killing each other daily.
Hey, Greg, can I ask a question, please?
You go ahead.
Have you been to the Middle East?
No, I haven't.
Okay, let me ask another question. Do you know how many homicides we had in Wichita in 2004?
I don't know.
We had 32. Do you know how many homicides we had last year? We had 16. We had 16.
Really?
You know how many prisoners we have in America?
Yeah, well, that's, just like Mrs. Phelps said, I disagree with her in a lot of deals, when you had her on a week or so ago where, but I do agree, and I love the United States, but, I could see why the Muslims call this a great Satan, like when you're trying to compare there. But then, when you get your hand chopped off for stealing something or they lob your head, like they do all the time in Saudi Arabia, well, there's going to be less crime.
Hey, Greg, then we need to change the Old Testament, which is the Torah, because the Torah also, it says eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Thank you so much. Let's go and talk about fires. That was the old fire. It wasn't that bad. I had a question, but seriously, we were talking about gangs and youth and homeless. Do you see anything from homeless? Because sometimes they're actually accused of starting fires.
There is a problem, and it's across the United States, and in Wichita also there is somewhat of a problem with homeless people using vacant properties, and they'll set a heating fire, especially during the winter. They'll start a heating fire inside the property, not using a lot of common sense. So there is somewhat of a problem of homeless starting fires in structures.